Okay, so welcome to Stories of Victory. My name is Kirstin, and my talk today is titled The Gifts of Learning to Stay. I'm so pleased to be here, and I am eternally grateful to be part of this incredible, inspiring, and supportive community of R2O. And you know, the Recovery 2.0 community came into my recovery in around year 6, and it changed. It changed my recovery. It filled a huge hole, or rather a slice of the pie of recovery that had been missing. And it also changed. It changed my life, and it changed my work, my career path as well. And all of the changes were very much for the better, I am pleased to say. And I just want to take this opportunity to extend my immense gratitude and appreciation and love for Tommy, for Stacey, for Iris, and for the rest of the team at Recovery 2.0 and for all that they do. And I thought we could start this evening with this lunchtime, this time of the day, wherever you're at, with a little bit of landing and grounding, just a few minutes to tap into that beautifully transformative power of gratitude. So if you would like to get comfortable wherever you're sat, we can, hello, Robin, so wonderful to have you here. I'm going to just divert my attention from the chat bar for a little while because I'm so easily distracted. And then I will be leaving time for question and answer at the end. Okay, so just taking a moment, bringing the palms, right hand under left at the heart center and applying just very gentle pressure. Take a moment to get comfortable where you're sat. Starting to see in your mind's eye and to feel in your body the spine as beautifully straight. And starting to bring the awareness inside, letting go of all that's happened in the day until now. Start to bring the focus to the breath. See if you can relax the belly. And if it's accessible for you, you can inhale through the nostrils and exhale through the nostrils. And if it's not, that's okay. You just adapt. Meet yourself where you're at today. So as you inhale, start to draw the inhale down a little bit deeper. And allow the exhale to be a little bit longer. And as you continue, notice the movements of the chest. As it rises, lifts, the heart opening on the inhale. And then on the exhale, a sense of exquisite letting go, releasing. And I'd like you to bring to mind something that you are grateful for in this moment. It can be absolutely anything. And start to see it in your mind's eye. Maybe it's a word, maybe it's a picture. As you continue to breathe fully and deeply, bring clarity to that word or that picture. And then on the next deep inhale, let that thing drop from your head into your heart. And as you do so, start to feel the essence of gratitude. Breathing deeply, feeling the heart expand, feeling the chest lift, feeling the heart open, cultivating that essence, that sense of gratitude. Continue to breathe fully and deeply. gratitude. And with each deep breath, starting to build that frequency, that vibration, so that it fills the heart and the lungs. And then with each deep breath, build and feel it spread throughout the body, down the torso, all the way to the bottom of the legs, the tips of the toes. Keep breathing fully and deeply. And then feeling it extend down the arms to the fingers. Feeding it with each inhale, with each breath of life force prana. Filling the entire body with this energy, this frequency, this vibration of gratitude. So that every single cell is infused. Bringing in a slight smile on the lips as you continue to breathe fully and deeply. Knowing that you are embodying, we are embodying this essence of gratitude, connected here through the unified field. And on the next inhale, breathe deeply. And as you get to the top of the inhale, pause for a moment, feeling the fullness, the extent, the open heart, the full heart, that potential, love and gratitude. And then exhaling, allowing the hands to drop and letting them rest on the lap or on the legs. Sat Nam, and thank you for joining me in that practice. Okay, so the talk for today from me, in the last talk that I did on R2O, I focused on my early recovery. So I didn't want to go over the same ground. And at the time that the email, the invitation came out to be part of it, I wasn't in a great place. I was in, but I'll go into that a little bit more later. I was actually in relapse. And for me these days, relapse isn't about the cocaine, the alcohol, the pot anymore, the substances which brought me to my knees. It's relapse for me these days is mental and emotional relapse. And what I noticed with this one as well was that, you know, the craziness with food had come back in, the soothing with sugar. And when I got the email, you know, the first thought, of course, was I can't possibly do it. I'm in no place to talk to anybody about anything. And then, you know, the wiser, more guiding voice. I know from having been taught this by Tommy that when a trusted, beloved teacher asks you to show up for something, the only answer is yes. And whenever that's happened with Tommy, it's always been a yes. So there was no question. And it also gave me a platform from which to start to shift where things were. And although I'd been, you know, I'd been in a place of doing the work and trying to do the next right thing and to get things to shift, and there would be a little bit of release, and then things would go back again. I'd open up, I'd feel like I was getting back on track, and then things would go back again. And you know, this time round for me, this mental and emotional relapse, there just felt like there was so much grief there. And you know, with being in the stage of menopause, you know, I was in this place of, is it just the hormones? Is it menopause? Is it everything that's happened over the last year? Is it grieving for family stuff that I've missed? Is it grieving for things that I haven't been able to show up for or be part of for the last year? The loss of, you know, what the future that I thought was going to play out before this latest shift in the world. And it just felt like it was more than all of those things. And I spoke to a few people and I was getting the same message. I'm coming into year 10 of my recovery. And even in Tommy's book, he speaks about getting to that stage. And that was when he realized he wasn't getting everything that he wanted or he needed in the 12 steps and in the rooms. And that's when he he made the decision to look out. Though that's my memory of reading the book anyway. So that's where I was. And I wasn't too sure of how I was going to approach the talk. And then I was listening in the car to one of my dear teachers, Pema Chodron, and it was just this really clear message that it's about learning to stay. And for the last, year, and since March 2020 for me, there hasn't been an option to really leave. And I think in certain situations that have unfolded in the last year, had there been an option to leave, I would have. And that's not how it's played out. So I have been held in experiences, in places, in connections with people, in activities and things that I'm doing that I previously probably would have chosen to remove myself from. And that hasn't been what's happened. And I wanted to understand the gifts of that. Because at the time I wasn't feeling strongly gifted. I was feeling pretty overwhelmed and pretty confused and pretty frustrated and like, gosh, how have I got to here, and why isn't what I'm doing working? So what I'd like to kick off with is or what I'd like to be going through in the talk is these gifts. Upon reflection, the gift of staying. And what I realized was the very first gift of staying came for me in early recovery. And that was, I was brought to my knees by drugs, by cocaine specifically, but I didn't identify as an alcoholic. Even it took a couple of years for me to be able to understand it wasn't just an issue with cocaine I had. It wasn't just a dependency. It wasn't just I had addiction issues with this substance, because then I started looking behind that and it was like, gosh, it was the same with pot, it's the same with nicotine. It was the same, and as I traveled into my recovery, it took about 2 years for me to identify as an addict. I didn't find the 12 steps or the rooms or the fellowship or anything to do with sort of supported fellowship recovery until I was in about year 5 of my recovery. It was very much cognitive behavior. It was personal development. It was the support of a very dear mentor to me. And it was a complete change of lifestyle, of the work I was doing, of the way I was living. I was in pretty serious depression and anxiety at the time. And it took 2 years for me to then get onto regular medication for that. And then from there led into the biggest healing part of my recovery, of the foundation, was the meditation and the yoga. And that's what came in first for me. So I wasn't around fellow addicts. I was on the spiritual path, and I was in that process of healing through yoga, that coming back, that bonding of body, mind, and spirit, and all of the healing potential of yoga, but without community, without the really having much talk of addiction around me. And in year 5, I was in Thailand and I came into the program. And it was at that point that I was actually then introducing myself, right? And the meetings here at the time were AA, and I was being told that I needed to introduce myself as an alcoholic. And I wasn't identifying as an alcoholic. I knew alcohol wasn't serving me, but alcohol, and I want to share this just in case there's anybody out there that needs to hear this message or that this is helpful for. I had certain patterns with hashish, with pot, with cocaine, and with other recreational drugs, where if they were in my home or on my possession, I couldn't not do them. And alcohol, I didn't have that connection to. So I was finding it really hard to put alcohol in this same container with the other substances, because it was different. And I got so stuck on that. And my reasoning for it was, well, I'm not an alcoholic because I can have alcohol in the house and not drink it. I can have an open bottle of wine in the fridge and not drink it and not be bothered by it. I'm not drinking first thing in the morning, and that's what alcoholics do. I don't have an inability to stop once I start, and that's what alcoholics are, right? And all of these preconceived ideas of what an alcoholic was. And to cut a long story short, I wasn't getting the answers that I needed to understand to be able to put this thing in there. And the only answers I was getting was, it will be the opening to going back to using. If you drink, you will be in a more vulnerable place to relapse on your drugs of choice. And, that was fine. I could go along with that. I was also very aware at that point, wellness, yoga, and meditation had been very strong in my life, and alcohol didn't really fit with those things. I had experienced in the first 2 years going back to drinking, and it wasn't a case of being able to drink in moderation as I had done before. And it was very spaced out. So it would be a joint 50th birthday party that I was traveling back to, that it was, a negotiation of, I'll just have a glass of champagne, and that didn't stop at one. And then it was a wedding that I went to. And then the third time it came around, that was where I was ready to say, okay, for this celebration that I'm going back to, I'm not going to drink. It doesn't serve me. And from then, it was the journey into the rooms and the ability to say, I am an alcoholic. And I do now identify as an alcoholic because it means something different to me. It isn't the criteria that I was looking at the beginning. And the gift of this is, had I not been able to find a way to identify the alcohol as well, I'm not entirely sure that I would be 100% in recovery. And I think of that possibility of me having one foot still in that measured drinking, the controlled drinking that I felt I was able to, because it just wouldn't have given me the life that I sit here now in. So that very first gift of learning to stay in recovery for me was that I got to be able to identify as an alcoholic as well. And I got to understand fully what was going on for me in my addiction. And, I sit sometimes at lunch with people and they're having seafood, and they'll have a beautiful, what I'm looking at is a beautiful glass of Chenin Blanc or a Sauvignon Blanc, and I'll go, oh, there'll be a little voice in my head that says, oh, wouldn't that be nice? And because I'm in community, because I work a daily program, because I'm surrounded by like-minded people, because I'm connected, I sit as an observer of that voice. But I'm aware, I believe, that if I wasn't connected, if I wasn't in community, it wouldn't take long before I was convinced that that would be a nice idea. And then I'm living this half life where I'm continuing to have this substance in my life. So that was the very first gift of learning to stay. The second gift of learning to stay in early recovery was that when someone shared with me that this was a disease, that addiction was a disease, I was very resistant to this because I felt it was a get out of jail free card. I didn't feel that I could jump on board with this because what would people think? It is just, there was still a part of me that was in belief that there was something about me that meant I hadn't been able to control this thing like my friends had, like my sisters were able to deal with these things. That it was, if I had managed to try harder or do better, if I was different, better in some way, had more willpower, had more capacity to be a proper adult in the functioning real world today, I somehow would have been able to change this. And that was really essential for me to step out of. And by staying in early recovery, by hearing the various different schools of thought, that it's a chronic brain disease, that it's an illness, that it's a result of trauma, that it's genetics, that it's epigenetics, Bruce Lipton's work of switching the gene on, that it's generational, that it's, all these different ways. It took time, and I'm so grateful that I was able to land both feet firmly in that, because what it meant was I could come to that essential place of letting go of the shame and the guilt. It's not me. It's not that I wasn't trying hard enough. It wasn't that I could have done better. And the freedom that came with that, again, allowed this exponential upgrade and improvement in recovery. So that was the second gift. The third gift of learning to stay. this last year, as I've shared, joys and challenges, I haven't met anybody yet who hasn't been dealing with something unimaginable in the last year. And I don't want to go into to the stories of the last year, just to know that joys and challenges, the best and the worst, the things that I would never have done differently, and other things that I don't even know how I navigated them. And the gift of me sitting here now is the transformation of having that perspective that this situation is not right for me. I need to remove myself from it. This person is toxic for me to be around. This situation is damaging for me to be in. And what landed for me this time, and I want to be mindful here, I'm not suggesting that we stay in situations that are traumatizing ourselves, although at the time, that is what I felt I was going through. And there wasn't an option to leave. And through that level of discomfort, through that level of losing myself, there has been an incredible awakening. And that awakening has been summed up very well in this quote that I've chosen from Alan Berger's recent book, which is The 12 Steps to Emotional Sobriety. This is the biggest gift for me out of all of this. Real maturity happens when we learn to act on our own behalf without manipulating others to support us or make us feel good about ourselves. And that manipulating others, there was a truth in there for me that I knew that I had to look at. Trying to manipulate situations, not feeling fearful of being completely honest and myself, because that would somehow not be a safe thing to do. And, the other gift that came from this was, I'd heard this time and time again, but it really landed for me this time, which was, can I stay unaffected by somebody else's shortcomings? And the answer very clearly for me was that I couldn't, that I was in these cycles of, this person is doing this thing, I'm not getting this here, this is going on and it's not right for me, it's not as, put very simply, it's not as I want it to be. So the learning here for me was, that I have no business expecting others to live up to my expectations. When I demand that others live up to my expectations, I am excluding them from the very relationship that I'm attempting to have with them. And that relationship comes to be all about what I want, what I expect, and what I want that will make my world right. Because when my world is right, my inner world is right. So that connection between the outside needing to be a certain way for the inside. And I knew, I know from the teachings that the path, the work is so that my inside can stay unaffected. And that what I was hearing really clearly was, okay, this next stage, this year 10, this next stepping into, this next beginning of recovery is very much about the emotional maturity for me. I also realized the next gift for me, and this came from a very dear mentor and guide. So the staying connected to me, the being able to find the support team, the people who I knew I could gain the wisdoms that I wasn't able to see or hear at the time. And this is one of them that came to me. I was in this cycle in a certain situation with a place and with people, and it would just keep coming. And every time I felt that there was resolution and I was moving on, it would come again and again, and it was exhausting. And what I got taught was, I was bringing a wound from my family of origin into this place, and I was replaying this wound, recycling it, for want of a better place, in the workplace. And when you think about the home and the workplace, at this time I was living on site. I'd run down all my savings before getting this job. So I was financially very dependent. So all my security was coming from there, and all of the dynamics that I thought I'd moved through, I wasn't even aware that the wounds were there. Anyway, that I was bringing this in. I was the person, and I was so fixated on what was going on outside me, I couldn't see it. So the biggest gift here was then learning that as I had grown up, I was wanted. I was in a family where I was loved and I was wanted. And yet at some stage as a child, I received the message that the love that I was getting from my caregivers, from my mum, was conditioned upon being a certain way, on keeping them happy, on pleasing. So the response in that situation, I then learned, was that what I did was to adopt a self-effacing solution to ease the anxiety that I would have, because to not get love and acceptance was incredibly threatening as a child. And as an adult, I'm playing this stuff out in my personal relationships. So repressing parts of me that I would feel didn't conform with what I thought would please the other person in order to get that love and acceptance. So denying parts of my authentic self, pushing these down, being a warped version of myself and showing up in the world that way. And I hadn't understood that's what I was doing. And I also was quite humbled to realize this is where my issues with people, because I can still struggle with people. And I haven't had, an intimate relationship in terms of a partner, in terms of a sexual relationship since I've been in recovery. And the understanding that this is all connected to that. So, how wonderful that I got to pick up these gifts and to now move into the freedom of the next stage of recovery. So what this brings me on to is this next stage, which is when I am out of alignment, out of integrity. And this is when I'm on my way to emotional and mental relapse, which was helping me piece together everything that had gone on in the last year. Okay, so as I mentioned, I was in this state of mental and emotional relapse. I was soothing with sugar. I was aware that my choices were not what they were pre recovery. The processed food and sort of commercial sweets are not in my life anymore. Soothing with sugar is the sort of coconut covered in dark chocolate. But I was still also even though it was a higher choice, I knew what was going on. And the gift was recognizing that I am not the exception to the rule. I have been through a bumpy ride, that first chakra out of alignment. I didn't have a solid home or base. I didn't have any great security at work. Month by month, I didn't really know if it was going to continue or, what was happening here in Thailand. That security, that level, and that just like other people, this is how it showed up. That first chakra goes out of balance. I'm soothing with going back to those dysfunctional relationships with food. So initially it was like, right, I've got this, I know the tools, do more breath of fire, do more grounding exercises for that root chakra. Come on, Kirstin, listen to me. Do harder, try harder, do better, thinking it's all down to me. But the underlying message being the truth, which is I knew I needed to change my state of consciousness if I wanted to change the behaviors that were in place. So the first thing here was awareness. And along with doing those practices, I knew that I needed to, when the email came through about a month ago, and I was in this place of struggling, I knew it was time to increase connection, increase community. So it was getting to more meetings. It was reaching out. It was sending a request out to people who I trusted to get somebody to step as a sponsor so I could go through the efforts. And I'm so eternally grateful to Elizabeth Kipp for stepping up and for being my sponsor, and for getting an accountability buddy with the food stuff. And it's still not a natural response for me to reach out for help, to talk to somebody about how I'm feeling and to get that support, that still needs to be a conscious practice. It's not automatic. And just with those few things, things started to shift. I then knew, because I had this ticking clock of this date. This was the gift of giving the talk. I knew I needed to be in a different place. So it was then like, right, I'm going to contact friends and family, and I'm going to be better connected. I need to reach out. I need to speak to a friend or a family member most days, or start scheduling in calls where I've been feeling isolated here. There isn't the connections. I haven't seen my loved ones for so long. And I did that, and that made a huge difference. And each day, so each day, I increased the meetings I was going to, and I became just more aware of what I was doing. So then it was a case of, okay, the next step, how do I set myself up beautifully for being able to sit here in this place that I wanted to be? And it was like divine timing. I started to bring in prayer, which was, please give me what I need. Please give me what I need so that I can traverse this and be of better service, so that I can handle what is going on. Please give me the tools, please give me the insights, please show me the next step. And it became really clear that I needed to step back for a few days and go and do a cleanse. Previously, I would have tried to be doing it at home and everything. And I thought, you know what? Give yourself the gift. I put the dog in the kennel. I took a couple of days and I went to go and do a cleanse. I was fully supported. I got to do an incredible rebirthing practice with this woman while I was there. There was saunas, there was yoga, there was meditation. Just being with someone who was guiding me in a class, in real life, being in nature, taking time out, all of those things. And as I was signing up for that, the email came in about Kia's 4-day retreat, which pretty much started a couple of days after I got back from that. So I knew, and that retreat brought me up to here and now. So it was like every time I drop into prayer, I'm kind of blown away at the miraculous way that it works. It does work. Just asking for help and praying for what I need and asking for guidance. So all of those things, and that's been one of the biggest gifts, just to have that reaffirmed into my being. The understanding that the emotions that I was feeling, it felt so much more than just that. Well, not just. It felt more than the grief. It felt more than the situation. It felt more than the menopause. It just felt more than. And so then I realized I'm getting a really clear message here that it's time that I want to start doing therapy. I want to bring in that psychology side that I don't have in my recovery yet. I have my spiritual teachers, I have my wellness, my nourishment, my, the whole epigenetic thing, how I'm living, how I'm treating this body. I have all of that, or have all of those teachers. I have all of that. And it became very clear that this is the next thing to bring into my support team, to invest in myself, to bring on the help and the support that I need. So that's been one of the biggest gifts. And yes. So the gift of permission. So when I went to go and do this retreat, there was a transformation that happened, because one of my triggers earlier on was what I would look at as privilege and entitlement would trigger me in people who had these easy lives. They didn't have to worry about paying the rent. They could go on any retreat they liked, and it would affect me, and I would be quite humbled by it, because I would notice the envy coming up and the wish that I could just have that. And when I got this opportunity to go and do this cleanse, when I made the decision, there was a part of me that was so uncomfortable with it. Like, I didn't really want people to know that I was spoiling myself this way at this time, and that it was somehow not the right thing to do. And I just sat in the observer's seat watching this going on and dropping into that next level of allowing that old skin, that old shedding to fall away, and to really, my sponsor put it in such a beautiful way. And I think this was the key to this. She told me, at this point in time, you have to take with its care of yourself. And that is just become now a non-negotiable for me. So, you know, what I have been able to do is through all of that, and then the divine timing of it being over the equinox, over the, one of my favorite festivals in Hong Kong since I was a kid was the Mid-Autumn Festival. You know, we go out and we would have lanterns. The idea is you go somewhere in nature, you know, a hillside or the beach, family, it's family time, and you look at the moon, right? And there's Chinese fables that go with it about a rabbit and a woman. And, you know, it was always one of my favorite times of year. And as an adult, we'd go to the beach, we'd have fires, we'd watch the moon. And I didn't even realize that it was happening this year. And it came in, as you know, a couple of days after I got back, and all of this crescendo of what I'd been going through with this full moon, and then with the equinox, it's like the wave broke. And again, I was in prayer. In the evenings, I was bringing in the resentment prayer with the people that I was having an issue with, because this got brought to my awareness by another mentor. And it's so simple. It's just Great Spirit, or however you address your higher power. Please give all that I want and more, health, wealth, and happiness to X. And I repeat that 8 times, and I'll do it for 2 weeks, and it does transform things. It's incredible. So again, just the timing with the equinox, with all of these things starting to shift, and I'm sitting in a different reality of life in these situations now. So the other, just going briefly, I'm aware of the time and of leaving time for questions. I do just want to touch what the gift of on food, because food is it's such a huge thing. And, you know, I've gone through this journey of questioning, you know, like I did with my addiction to my substances of choice originally. Is it just an addiction to this thing? Am I, you know, is it just a behavioral thing? You know, I've gone from, oh, I'm just a foodie, you know, I just love my food, to, oh, I soothe with food, to doing this last round of Herb Kagan's workshops, and through some of the other insights that I've had, it's understanding that within the definitions of food addiction, that I am a food addict, that I do have a dysfunctional connection with food. And again, what was quite confusing for me originally was, you know, I had this thing licked. I've been working in wellness for 4 years, and I'd been living this life where, you know, I had this incredible routine and structure to my life, and that all the issues with food had gone. And that I was even writing this program, which was Freedom with Food. And, you know, when the issues came back, it was, you know, what the heck is going on here? Knowing in my mind that it's always going to be cyclical. Stuff is going to come back in, and it's going to be the next level of learning. So the next level of learning, that gift for me here, is that it is my state of consciousness. Where I was at in that beautiful routine, working in wellness centers, being able to use the equipment and the, you know, the far infrared pods there, and having juices and smoothies, and being surrounded. You know, when I went and did this cleanse last week, the thing that hit me was how my heart and my soul just sang to be surrounded by people who are all into holistic wellness, the practitioners there, the people serving me, the conversations about the juices and the different cleanses and how it affects the body, and the different modalities, the equipment that they had there. That is a passion. You know, I would say that is the passion and purpose for me. And the knowing that, feeling that, and knowing that nothing changes if I don't change my state of consciousness. I can't focus on the behavior and expect it to change. I transform my awareness, my focus to, first of all, how do I change my state of consciousness? That's my practices. That's getting back on the mat. That's getting into sadhana. That's signing up for Kia's retreat, because I need the support and I need the accountability, giving myself the support team that I need. And then the next stage to that, what was the next thing for that? It's the state of consciousness. And Yeah, it's gone. So with that, it's understanding, the outside. For me, I divide this stuff into the outside in work and the inside out work. So the outside in work for me is the CBT, so the cognitive behavioral therapy, changing the thoughts that I'm having, be having awareness, first of all, noticing them, changing them so that I can change the thoughts, I change how I'm feeling, I then change how I behave off the back of that. And then the real powerhouse for me is the meditation, the yoga, the breath work, the kriyas, the kundalini yoga, this inside out work, which I am so grateful for my teachers, Tommy and Kia, for, that I get to sit on the mat and actually put my effort into what needs to be done to change the state of consciousness. And then the behavior changes off the side. I'm not even focusing on that, and that shift. Okay, that's it. So whilst I'm changing the state of consciousness, I also need to remember that if I am in emotional and mental relapse, I've gone against a principle. I'm out of alignment with my values somehow. So I need to take a look at that. And the the principle that came clearly through for me this time was honesty. And that connects back to that emotional sobriety thing about manipulating people and situations. It ties back into that family wound of suppressing the things and showing up as I think I need to be in order to get the love and the approval, rather than as my full, authentic, complete self. So the biggest gift that came off that is the mantra that I now have for myself, because the thoughts, they kick in, right? So whenever I'm aware, I chant, I am secure, I am complete, I am abundance. I am secure, I am complete, I am abundance. I am secure, I am complete, I am abundance. Just to drown out anything else that's going on in there. And with the honesty thing, with recognizing that that was a principle that I had gone against, I needed to get a handle on, okay, I need to be honest with myself. And for that, I need outside reflection. So I actively sought input from trusted mentors and guides of, what am I not seeing here? How can you help me? And I continued with my journey with the efforts. So what this also brought me to the honesty about was I wasn't reflecting on myself honestly. I was giving myself much more of a hard time, imagine that, than I needed to. And what I wasn't seeing was that even though I was in relapse, even though I was using sugar to soothe, and I was out of alignment with food, and I was overeating, and I was comfort eating, and I was binge eating. And even though I was in that place, I wasn't seeing what my non-negotiables were. And the state that I'd got to in my recovery was, it was non-negotiable for me to be in bed. A late night for me is 10 p.m. And then the other side of that is waking up in the morning. I have a lemon water in a flask at the side of the bed. I can't get up without scraping my tongue these days because it's been such a habit. So there was the tongue scraping. There's the lemon water. There's the non-negotiable. Marley goes out for a walk every morning and I need to take him. So, that's non-negotiable. I'm getting up. I'm moving the body. I'm going out. And it's got pretty non-negotiable for me to have a green juice in my day. So all of these things, and staying hydrated, which is just second nature to me most of the time, all of these things were meaning that even though the sugar addiction, the sugar habit had come back in, I was supporting myself pretty well with a solid foundation there. And that to look at that side, and then to sit in loving kindness instead of being critical about soothing with sugar, to notice I am soothing. I need nurture, nature. I need nurture and support at this time. How else can I get it? How can I bring that sweetness into my life so that I'm not looking for it on the taste buds for that instant gratification? So all of these were incredible, incredible gifts. And the last one, I know that we're at 1:45. The last one I'll just go through very quickly. This was a gift of learning to stay in recovery. And I know that when I came into recovery, I wasn't into spirituality. I didn't really understand it. I was anti-religion. I could see all the horrors and the awful things that religion had done in the world. And that's where my mind was. Even as I believed in energy, and I believed that I needed to see everything in science. And part of that I realized later on was I didn't want to look gullible. I didn't want to look like an idiot for believing in things. You know, my godfather did Reiki and I could feel it. And I believed on a big level in the belief of this stuff, but I wouldn't really say that I believed in it because I didn't want to look stupid and I didn't want to look like I was believing in something that couldn't be proven. And that was my ego, right? So as I got into the meditation, the yoga, that was the spiritual training, I had an issue with the word God. And as I said, you know, the 12 steps didn't come in until year 5, and the word God was still very sticky for me. I could use that and I could use the languaging of the big book to have issues with, and it didn't really resonate and I couldn't really sit with it. And, you know, one of the gifts of just staying in recovery and hearing people shares and going to meetings, and I would hear people saying, oh, I just use the word God now because it's shorter. And I couldn't get that because God was very different from universe. That had such a different meaning. Universe, source, spirit, the things that I was slowly understanding. And in 2017, I've been doing cleanses myself most of my life. I went for my first cleanse at a place called the Sanctuary in Koh Phangan, which is an island in Thailand. And I had a theta healing session with this lady called Moena. I remember her clearly. And she actually, before she started, she wanted to know my languaging for things. So that was the first time anybody had actually asked me to explain, and I couldn't really. I was talking through her with like, well, you know, my higher self, higher power, the universe, source, and I kind of, that was where it all started to fit into place. And in time, there's a poem that I was going to read, which is called "I Stand by the Door," but it's quite a long one. And what I realized, I would highly recommend it. It's in Herb Kagan's book, and it's by Samuel Moore Shoemaker, and it's written around 1929. So it's that male language. You know, it's God and it's he, and it's talking very clearly about God. And the resistance, or let me put that a different way, the lack of landing in my heart with grace of hearing that language before, I would have noticed. Whereas now, the word God, again, it's this transformation. I can see all that I think of in terms of the universe and source and everything else through that word now. And just that belief that it's an incredible journey. And I'm so grateful for having the opportunity to come and do a talk like this so that I get to reflect and so that I get to share. And you have no idea how much of a gift this is for me. And I'm so, so, so grateful to be here and to get this opportunity and to just have had the chance to put this all and to take time out and share this with you. So I would just like to say thank you to you all for being here.